Abhitosh Upadhyay from Goa, and his talk is about eigenvalue estimates and geometric rigidity of hypersurfaces. So, thanks for speaking.
Thank you for the introduction. So, first of all, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity. And I am not an expert in spectral theory thing. So, that is another reason to thank the organizers, especially Professor Michael Leventin if he is here, because he provided some beautiful information. That's why I am here. So this is a joint work with Julian Roth. He is in University of Gausto FL in France, and this result got published last year in Analisi Mathematica and Pure Applicata journal. But I have not included any technical details because I want to keep my talk light because I am just in light section. So, but I will just give some motivation. What is the idea behind this? So let me just fix some notations. So last part you can see already in the previous lecture you have idea about what is this. So in differential geometry it is known as higher order mean curvature basically. So let me start from a compact oriented Riemannian manifold without boundary and X be an isometric inversion where B denotes its second fundamental form, A is Wingerton operator and S is the trace of the Wingerton operator, that is mean curvature. So here in HR if you can see that if I will just take R is equal to 1, it means I am just taking the trace of all the, like I am just adding all the principal curvature and then dividing by the number. And if you will take R is equal to 2, so or R is equal to 3, in that way, so suppose I have 3 principal curvatures. So what is the meaning of H1 is simply K1 plus K2 plus K3 by 3. And if it is, you are taking R is equal to 2, it means you are taking 2 at a time, that is K1 K2 plus K2 K3 plus K3 K1 divided by 3. So, and the last one is your Gaussian curvature, that's all. So now, question. So, a natural question in differential geometry is to characterize geodesic sphere in the class of all compact hypersurfaces of the Euclidean space, or more generally you can say that in like space form like hyperbolic spaces or sphere. Now, the first classical characterization is that if you consider totally umbilical compact hypersurfaces, they are going to be round spheres. So, the fact that if you are considering this totally umbilical condition, it will give you that your mean curvature is going to be constant. But this condition is not sufficient. If you are just considering that your mean curvature is constant, it will not give you that your hypersurface is going to be a sphere, something like that. So you need additional conditions. So you have the famous Alexander theorem, which will ensure that if you are considering a closed embedded hypersurface of the Euclidean space, with constant mean curvature, it must be a round sphere. But here we are assuming very strong condition, that is embedded hypersurface. So an obvious question is that if you are just considering this immersed hypersurface, what is going to happen basically? It means you need additional condition to ensure that your hypersurface is going to be a round sphere. So the hypothesis is to be embedded is crucial, because there are some counter examples that if you are considering just immersed hypersurfaces, it is not going to be a round sphere if your mean curvature is constant. So that's why. Now, if you are just assuming that H is constant, so there are you can assume some additional condition and that will ensure that your hypersurface is going to be a round sphere. So Singh proved that if your mean curvature is constant, and this position vector and unit normal, when we are talking about hypersurface, so it has one unit normal vector. So if it has fixed sign, then again it is going to be a round sphere. Now they prove this result more generally for higher order mean curvature, and with the same assumption, it is going to be a round sphere. Now, if you consider this X is an embedding and HR is constant, it was proved by Rose, it is again going to be a round sphere. So this is one way to characterize your geodesic hypersurfaces. But what is the another way? So another way classification characterization of geodesic sphere is the limiting case of solved geometric inequalities. And that is the only thing I can say that at least I can touch this workshop little bit. So here we have a spectrum of this Laplacian. So see, increasing sequence of real numbers, and Rayleigh inequality gives an extrinsic upper bound for the first non-zero eigenvalue of the Laplacian. So what is that? So in 1977, he obtained this following estimates for the first eigenvalue of the Laplacian. You can see that this lambda 1 is less equal than n divided by volume of the hypersurface and then multiplied by the integral r square of the mean curvature. But he again, more generally, he extended this result for higher order mean curvature, and he has this type of inequality. Now if M is immersed and enclosed a domain omega, this lambda 1 is less equal than this quantity, and the equality holds if and only if Xm is a geodesic sphere of radius square root of n by lambda 1, that is the first eigenvalue of the Laplace operator. So this is related to the first eigenvalue. Now consider the stable problem. So we assume M is immersed, so therefore it includes a domain omega. Now this is the stable problem, and data is the Laplacian of this Euclidean space, mu is the unit normal. Because all the terms are familiar to you, so I am not going to explain. So why this thing? So Elias and Macau proved that this inequality related to the volume of the hypersurface and volume of the domain omega. Now they extended this result for the higher order mean curvature, and they found another inequality. So we also have this sigma 1 is going to be less equal than 1 by n plus 1 multiplied by volume of the hypersurface divided by volume of the domain omega. And again, in this situation also, equality holds if Xm is going to be a geodesic sphere of radius 1 by sigma 1. This is another way to characterize this inequality thing. Now, there is a third concept that is known as extrinsic radius. So what is extrinsic radius? So it is the radius of the smallest closed ball that will contain my Xm. So you can see that due to the compactness property, there will exist a unique point in Euclidean space such that it will satisfy this condition. So due to this extrinsic radius concept, again we have this type of inequality, that extrinsic radius of the hypersurface is going to be greater or equal than 1 by L2 norm of the mean curvature vector. And again, one can see that if you want to visualize the same quantity in terms of higher order mean curvature, so you have this inequality. And then again in this situation, the equality holds if Xm is going to be a geodesic sphere of radius, this extrinsic radius. So we have three ways to characterize our geodesic sphere. So now what is the question? So basically we have these inequality, and all these inequalities are basically depend on this Minkowski formula, which say that if you are integrating this quantity, it will be equal to 0. And consequence is that the L2 norm of the position vector is going to be greater or equal than 1 upon L2 norm of the mean curvature vector. So that is the consequence. Now one can generalize this for other symmetric endomorphisms for zero divergence tensor type of things, and we have this inequality. So I'm not going to tell anything about this. So I just want to show the main result. So basically we have, suppose we are considering that manifold, the hypersurface has boundary, then again we have these three inequalities in case of Laplacian, Stecolo and extrinsic radius. And again we have equality case if it satisfies this condition. Now question is, what can we say about our hypersurface if equality is almost reached in these inequalities? So almost reached in the sense, if you just consider your first eigenvalue of the Laplacian lies between this quantity. So basically I am just subtracting this epsilon quantity and then lambda lies between this. In the same way, I can ask about this sigma 1 also, and third one, that radius square of the extrinsic radius basically. So what will happen if our equality is almost reached? That is the question. And we try to answer this question. So without going into details, so basically if p is greater than 2, so I have these inequalities. Now what we prove that, so we prove that whatever condition I mentioned in the previous slide, if these conditions are satisfied, basically for epsilon, then we can prove that it will be also true for 2 epsilon. So using some technicalities and inequalities, finally we are able to prove that. And using this pinching results of first eigenvalue of the Laplacian, we prove the following result. That is our main result. So if you have, so suppose n is greater or equal than 2, and M be a connected oriented compact Riemannian manifold without boundary, isochromatically immersed in this Euclidean space, and S be any field of symmetric endomorphism with divergence, with zero divergence, such that, because if we ensure that integral is not equal to 0, that's why we are considering this zero divergence. And if p, so there will exist three numbers, because my epsilon, there will exist one epsilon 0, and on that epsilon 0, depending upon those three numbers, finally, if this condition will be satisfied, then there will exist an epsilon less than this epsilon 0 such that our hypersurface is going to be diffeomorphic and this C epsilon alpha almost isometric to the sphere of this radius. That is the result. And this is the case if M is immersed. So another result is if M is embedded. So this is the same result. So basically, so one can ask what is this C epsilon alpha almost isometric. So I just want to mention what is the meaning, because there are 3 steps to prove this. So finally we constructed a diffeomorphism. So suppose we have a diffeomorphism from our hypersurface to a sphere, and suppose it has metric D2. So basically we prove that this D2 fx1 fx2 minus D1 x1 x2 is less equal than this C epsilon to the power alpha for every x1 x2 that is the element of this one. This is the meaning of this C epsilon to the power alpha almost isometric. So this is the result. So there are 3 steps, some technicalities, some technical lemmas are there, so I'm not going to into details. And finally, thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Abhitosh, for the talk. Questions from the audience?
In your previous slide, it was a condition IP prime stay missed. Can you recall what it is? Before this one, when you gave your yes, the condition is satisfied, but what is this condition which has to be satisfied? I missed.
This one or previous one? Yeah, this one.
Yes, just
So here they are the equations. It should be satisfied.
which one?
This LP epsilon, SP epsilon, and so all these 3 inequalities, it will satisfy for epsilon, then we can prove that it will satisfy for 2 epsilon also. And then using some pinching results and some technical lemma, we can prove that it is our hypersurface is going to be diffeomorphic to some sphere of radius something, and then this condition.
I see.
So at least geometrically we can see what is going to happen in the in the neighborhood of that equality. Yeah.
Can you explain what you mean by pinching?
So pinching, basically, here you can see that. No, I have to go forward. So there is, because actually pinching means L2 norm of the position vector will lie between 2 different quantities. So we have to assume that pinching condition and on the basis of that. Because we cannot think that, okay, our position vector will lie like very large, something like that. So that is the idea basically. Because anyway, we are in the epsilon neighborhood of that quantity. So we cannot go like very far. So that's why we have to assume some pinching condition, and then finally we are able to prove this.
Any further questions for Abhitosh? If not, let's thank the speaker again.